Welcome to Chad's Adventures. Finally, another episode. After a long break from making vlogs, I'm back and I'm excited to share an adventure I recently took to Virginia. I got to visit Norfolk, Yorktown, and Williamsburg. Now, this is a personal journey for me as my Nelson ancestors immigrated to Yorktown in about the year 1700. And they played a role in the birth of the United States of America. And I'm very proud to be part of that bloodline. So without further ado, here are some of the highlights of my visit to Yorktown. Welcome to Yorktown, Virginia, finally in the land of my forefathers. Well, Yorktown was one of the 8 original shires that was formed in Colonial, Virginia in 1682. It's also the site of the final battle of the Revolutionary War in 1781. My 6th great-grandfather, Thomas Nelson, also known as Scotch Tom, was born in 1677 in Penrith, Northumberland, England. Well, he immigrated to the colony of Virginia in the beginning of the 1700s. Our Scotch Tom is the immigrant ancestor of the Nelsons, which is one of the first families of Virginia. Over 300 years later, 8 generations later, here I am. So Scotch Tom's son was known as Secretary Thomas Nelson, and he was my 5th great-grandfather. He had long service as secretary to the Royal Government's Council. Now, secretary wasn't like you think today, like answering phones and taking notes. It was kind of like the vice president that answered to the royal, to the king. Now, he was one of the few civilians to witness the bombardment of Yorktown in the final battle of the Revolutionary War. His house was built on the highest part of town, and actually I'm standing within the foundations of that house right now. So I'm standing in the spot where Secretary Nelson's house stood. It's the highest part of Yorktown. From whenever you clear it out, you could actually see it from about a mile away. And so the British had occupied Yorktown and put their headquarters here. And in this home, this spot is where Lord General Cornwallis set up his military command. So French and American troops began to open fire on Yorktown, and this house is a prime target. So right behind me is where Secretary Nelson's house once stood, where this little monument is, and you can see the foundation lines in the grass, and in the distance would be where the battlefield was. In 1781, British General Cornwallis was occupying Secretary Nelson's home as his headquarters when the French and American forces bombarded the town. Cannon shot punctured the roof and walls of Nelson's sturdy brick house. Someone standing in the living room took a direct hit to the head by a cannonball, killing him instantly. Nelson's nephew, General Thomas Nelson Jr., was worried for his uncle's safety and asked General George Washington for a ceasefire, to which Cornwallis agreed. 2 redcoats escorted the 65-year-old Secretary Nelson across the battlefield. Nelson suffered from gout and hobbled to safety over his own land where he had hunted in younger years. His home would not survive the conflict. And now I'm off to visit the still standing Nelson House and then the Grace Episcopal Church and Cemetery. I am standing in front of the house that my 6th great-grandfather, Scotch Tom Nelson, built around 1730. So I'm meeting a park ranger here named Linda, who's letting me in this house. Hi, Linda.
Welcome to the Nelson house. So most of the house is original. It's easier for me to point out what's not. So the wood you're standing on here and the foyer is not original. The glass in the windows isn't. The stairs going up are not. electricity, fire suppression, air conditioning, but pretty much everything else is original. When you go in the rooms, you're going to be standing on 300-year-old floors, and it's not going to squeak like this cheap stuff out here. So the house was built around 1730 by a Scotch Tom Nelson who came over from England, made a fortune in tobacco.
My 6th great grandfather.
Yeah, there you go. And his grandson, of course, was Thomas Nelson Jr., signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was the 4th wealthiest signer of the Declaration of Independence, and we forget that they were putting their life on the line when they signed that. So he ended up giving a lot of his money towards the cause, and he died decidedly poorer after the war. He wasn't broke, but you know, he certainly wasn't the 4th wealthiest. And this was also used as a Civil War hospital during the Civil War. So in this door here and one upstairs, you'll see these weird circles, and we believe they would take those out to allow ventilation for the soldiers that were hospitalized here. So yeah, you're going to see some lighting fixtures. We had it open temporarily last night, and you can go upstairs. There's 4 empty bedrooms, and just have a look. There's information in here. And yes, you're one of the many descendants of the Nelson family. There's a lot of you. We get. I've been showing the Nelson home to a lot of Nelsons the past 2 years.
Saw some damage on the outside of the house whenever I walked up on the facing the battlefield. What's that about?
So, I mean, 80% of Yorktown was severely damaged during the siege. I mean, it was an average of, 1,200 cannonballs and mortar shell bombs raining down on the village. And so the Nelson house received damage as well. A lot of the damage was repaired, but when you're here in some of the brickwork, you'll see cannonball damage. And there's cannonballs in the side of the Nelson house, but the cannonball damage they're in is original, but a later owner of the Nelson home decided to put those cannonballs in there for effect.
Okay.
So yeah.
But that's the actual damage.
Yeah, that's the actual damage, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm in the Nelson home, and I'm standing in the front door. I'm going to show you what it like. This is the main foyer entrance. Stairway up to the 2nd floor. In this door to the left would have originally been the dining room. Exit out to the room across the hall was the tea room. This is where they would have hosted parties and gatherings. The portrait of Thomas Nelson Jr. above the mantle or above the fireplace when he was 16. As you go back to the left of the staircase, this would have been the man of the house's bedroom, Scotch Tom or Thomas Nelson Jr. And he would have slept in this room. If you want to go upstairs to his wife's bedroom for who knows what, you would have gone through this door. There's a set of spiral stairs that go up to the 2nd floor. And so,
yes, I did let him open that door and film that.
to her bedroom. Yes. And as you've gone up these stairs, the original handrail to the mantle would be the top portion up here. So as I place my hand on it, you will see that I'm touching an area where lots of famous colonial people would have been. Up to the 2nd floor, and you turn it immediately right, you get to the Mrs. bedroom. This is where the staircase would have ended up. And this is where the lady of the house would have slept. Here, she had her own fireplace, and there's some great views of the town from these windows. As you can see there, such a beautiful area. Come across to this window, another great view. And then if you exit this room, look, they had closets. The rooms are kind of small, so come out here, and these are 3 other bedrooms. I don't know, this is where the children would have stayed, I assume, whenever they were younger. So you have other bedrooms here, a big foyer area on the 2nd floor. This one is closed off right now. They have events in here, and so I can't go in that room. But another bedroom here. And you can see a view of their garden area through this window. The house gardens. And then if you go this direction, out this window, you can't see it from here, but on the other side of those trees, this is Main Street. On the other side of those trees is the river. So I feel like I'm home. I'm in the Nelson house, and I'm a Nelson, so I just feel at home here. It's a great place to visit. Okay, so I'm going to show you the damage from the cannon shot. I'm standing right in front of the Grace Church where my ancestors would have worshiped God and where a lot of them are buried. This church was built around 1697. It was the religious centerpiece of Yorktown's history. It endured 2 wars. It had a devastating fire that it survived. Then it had just old age crumbling problems. But for over 300 years, it has continued as a place of worship. This is what it looked like in colonial times. And here's what it looks like now. Well, I am disappointed to say that I cannot get into this church because the doors are locked. So in the meantime, I'm going to walk into this cemetery and find some of my family members. All right, I found my first cousin 6 times removed, which is General Thomas Nelson Jr., who's governor of Virginia and a signer of the Declaration of Independence. And here's his final resting place. So I'm standing here looking at Thomas Nelson Jr.'s grave. I look up and see Scotch Tom's grave just right over. My 6th great grandfather who immigrated to this country from England. He's also the one that built the Nelson House. He built the house, and then later on during the American Revolution, Thomas Nelson Jr., his grandson, was occupying the home. On the church wall outside, they have a display showing the original structure and the original finish of this building. I'll show it to you. There's the original structure. And here's the original finish of what it would have looked like. Another very cool finding here in the cemetery. Look at this. Nicholas Marteau and 16 of his family members were reinterred from the family burial site on Buckner Street to this site in 1936. This marker is dedicated to Nicholas Marteau, and I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong, upon whose land the town of York was founded in 1691. It was the earliest American ancestor of General George Washington and Governor Thomas Nelson, dedicated in 1993. To Thomas Nelson, he was also related to me. So I need to research that and find out how he's related to me. Well, I'm always excited to share some of my experiences and explore things that interest me. So if you like my content, then hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, this is Chad signing off.